Thousands of Libyans have started calling for accountability, and they've also expressed their fury over what they deem poor handling by regional authorities after a flood killed about 11,000 people on the 11th of September, with over 10,000 people still missing and more people displaced. Not forgetting the political tension in the country, now worried that the citizen or the government will do nothing but focus on securing its power, and that is according to the citizens. Well, let's get straight to it, but of course not without my guest. Now, joining me to further unpack this development is Mustafa Fetouri, a Libyan academic and a journalist at Tripoli, Libya. Thank you so much, Fetouri, for joining us.
Thank you for having me. It's always a pleasure to join News Central.
It's a pleasure to have you join us as well. Now, Mustafa, let's start with the basics. What is the mood in Libya currently?
Well, the mood is one of somber and, of course, anger, as many people are still questioning what really happened. And it's not neither government in Tripoli here or the other government in Eastern Libya and Benghazi have offered any logical, if you like, explanation beyond the fact that two dams have collapsed in Derna and completely washed away something like 1/4 of the city. People demanding, accountability, as you have mentioned in the introduction, and accountability has been promised to them. Will that deliver? Will that happen? How serious the investigation going on will be is yet to be seen. And but if we go by previous experiences, I don't think anything will happen, at least in terms of punishing responsible high-ranking officials, whether here in Tripoli or in Benghazi or in East Libya or in Derna itself, where the tragedy took place. But one thing is for certain: people are united across Libya, north, south, east, west. And the narrative that Libyans are divided between East and West, as has been the predominant story over the last 7 or 9 years, is completely false. And it's a manipulation by the politicians who want to stay in power. They use it and they try to make people hate each other. And we have seen, contrary to that, a complete unity, complete one stand-up, one position by the entire nation to help the stricken areas in Eastern Libya. And people are just doing what they can. They're collecting donations, they're collecting food, blankets, shelters, tents, medicine, you name it, clothes, whatever. And hundreds of private convoys organized by ordinary citizens have crisscrossed Libya from all parts of the country, heading to Derna, particularly to Derna. And the latest is a convoy of something like 2,000 cars just left early this morning from Gad, which is very, very close to the Algerian borders in the southwest of the country, in a show of complete unity and complete solidarity amongst the Libyan people, despite what the politicians have been saying for the last 9 years.
Right. So now we understand what the Libyans mean by they're seeking accountability. So we're talking about investigating the cause of, the issue in the first place and what exactly the government will be doing about it. But has there been any response from the government that they're protesting to? Has anybody said anything regarding the protests? Is there any action that has been taken?
Well, yes, there have been actions taken, and I could outline two important things here. One, this complete dismissal of the entire municipal council or the local government in Derna itself, and referring all members, 5 of them, to prosecutors to start investigation. That's one thing, very good thing. Despite the fact people are not happy with the replacement of this council with the new one. And the other important thing is in terms of accountability and actions taken in this regard is the fact the country's prosecutor general, Mr. Sadiq al-Sur, toured Derna and other parts of eastern Libya stricken by the storm and started the investigation. And as late as recent as yesterday, he updated the media by saying that the investigation is going smoothly and it will be a very serious investigation. And we will follow every and each lead we get to determine what really happened and who is responsible for the negligence, and if there is any threats of corruption, if you like, and wasteful spending instead of maintaining the dams which destroyed the Derna. The money allocated for that maintenance work actually years ago, it has been discovered that the money has been spent on some other things which have nothing to do with maintaining the dams themselves. So we see some action, there is an action, there is a promise of action, and an investigation is going on. But as I said before, it remains to be seen what really will happen once the investigation is over, and who's going to be blamed.
Okay, Mustafa, now as the immediate search for survivors begins to wind down, the citizens of Derna are also confronting the fresh outbreak of diseases, waterborne disease especially. Do you think that there are enough health facilities to tackle the health diseases? Because it's very easy to get distracted. Well, maybe not a distraction, but try to handle the casualties and the loss caused by the flood, but not looking exactly at the waterborne diseases. So are there health facilities that can address that as well?
I believe there are facilities. Most of the medical facilities, like other housing and buildings inside Derna itself, have been destroyed. But Derna is surrounded by other towns and cities with a very short driving distance, like Goba and Beida and many others, and Tobruk as well, which is a little bit far, but still reachable and manageable distance. So I don't think there is a problem with the health facilities or lack of medicine, or maybe there is some kind of confusion concerning the management of the huge number of people who need medical attention. Specifically, I would say, in terms of psychological impact of the flood itself. So I don't think there is a serious problem in this regard. There have been some concerns about the polluted water, but people have been warned that they should not drink the water inside the city itself, inside Derna, because it's highly polluted. But there's a lot of provided for. A lot of water, fresh water provided for them that coming from all over the country, as I mentioned before. So there is no serious worry. There was a statement yesterday from the Center for Disease Control in Tripoli, based in Tripoli, but from its team in Derna itself, and they said we only have a few limited cases, something like less than a dozen cases of diarrhea and things, kind of illness that is related to the polluted water, but there is no serious pandemic in terms of the, in terms of the threat to the public health in general. So it's quite all right in that regard.
Right. Okay, now help us understand this. Now, the protests that happened on Monday or started on Monday marked the first large demonstrations since the flood started. Now, citizens attempt to hold leaders across the divided country accountable for the bursting of dams that some feel could have been avoided. Now, if they say that the bursting of the dams could have been avoided, how could it be so? What could have been done differently?
Well, of course, the entire disaster could have been avoided. I wouldn't say completely avoided, but I would think that the huge casualties could have been avoided, and we could have ended up with limited number of people dead, limited number of people displaced, had the authorities done any or all of the following. One, there should have been clear and precise warning from the meteorological services, meteorological authorities in Libya. They did warn the people, but it was not enough. It was not very clear warning. The second thing they could the second measure they could have taken is the fact that they could have forced people to leave their homes in the evening of Saturday evening, the 9th of September, I'm sorry, and in the early hours of the morning of the 10th on Sunday, when the storm made the huge landfall. And third, there could have been other preparations in terms of, let's be clear. What the storm Daniel, before it reached Libya, has already passed through three other countries: Bulgaria, Greece, and Turkey. And we have seen what happened in those countries, but those countries were far much prepared than Libya. By the time it reached Libya on the 10th of September, on Sunday morning, the authorities here in Western Libya and Tripoli, where I am, as well as in the eastern part of the country, they already know what was happening and what they are expecting. But the thing is, there was too much confusion. When one authority said that people should evacuate certain areas in Derna, another authority came up and said, no, you should not evacuate, but actually they imposed a curfew on the people, asking them to stay indoors for their own safety, which is completely ridiculous and the wrong way of doing things. So the number of casualties, could have been minimized. The fact that the two dams collapsed at the same time indicates not only something about the lack of their maintenance, which have not been done properly over the last 10 years, because we have been fighting each other for the last 12 years or so, and nothing is done about the infrastructure, let alone the dams. But also, the warning about the dams itself were not taken seriously. Let me mention something here very important. There was a study, a technical study, which was published late last year here in Libya, in one of the main journals, scientific journals in the universities of Sabha in the south, and specifically said if nothing is done about the dams in Derna, the next flooding will be a disaster. That the study was published in, I believe, last November, and this is the outcome, specifically what the people have warned us about. But nobody took the warning seriously.
Right. Okay. Now, we also understand that this protest is likely to swell beyond the city of Derna. And to prevent that, we need to understand what exactly the agitations are. We know that they're asking for accountability. We know that they're asking for investigations. But what will be done to avoid the protest escalating into every other city in Libya?
Well, I think the authorities both in Tripoli and in Benghazi, they are doing their utmost to avoid the public anger escalation, if you like, across the country, because that could end their political career, in a matter of hours if that happens. But they are trying to do this with desperate efforts. For example, there is a continuous day, in, day out updates of information, updates of, through officials in Eastern Libya. There is very little talk about differences between the two competing governments, one in here and the other one in Benghazi. So they are trying to smooth the public if you like, mood through highlighting what they have been doing and how serious their efforts are in terms of rescue and rebuilding. I mean, we passed the phase of rescue because there's nobody to rescue anymore. It's about collecting the dead bodies from the sea, basically, and just trying to start some kind of rebuilding process. I think generally speaking, I don't think that will end the public anger wave we are experiencing now. And I would think if there is no concrete results out of the investigations, the ongoing investigations promised already and started already a few days ago, by, I would say, a month's time, I think it will be a completely different thing. And we could say, we could see anger exploding across the country, not just in the eastern part. But then, there are political factions who stand to gain and others who stand to lose from any such outcome. Whether people are, satisfied with the measures taken by the governments or not. But then it's wait and see game. If the authorities deliver seriously on the issue of investigation and who's to blame and pointing the finger directly at certain high-ranking officials who are clearly responsible for what has happened by negligence and through corruption, then they could satisfy the general demand of the public for complete overhaul of the entire system, as well as transparent and complete accountability. Yes.
All right. Now, we also understand that the United Nations Humanitarian Office is demanding about $71.4 million for aid to Libya. We also understand that some countries had initially sent aid to these countries. How far has the aid they received before now gone that they need this much more aid for the people?
Well, in terms of money, I don't think Libya needs that $70+ million. They are peanuts, for a country like Libya with the huge oil reserves and exporting capacity. That's very well, and earning a lot of cash for the oil from the oil exports. I don't think we really needed that. Also, I don't think we need any emergency, kind of aid in terms of food, blanket, shelter, you name it. Probably we need some technical aid, some technical help in terms of looking for bodies, people who have been washed away into the sea, and rebuilding and redesigning the parts of the city that have been destroyed, and so on and so forth. But then, having said that, I think there is a sense in the international community, those countries that are trying to push to offer aid to Libya in terms of finances, including in the part of the United Nations. I think there is a kind of a sense behind that, behind the scene, whereby the UN wants to be more directly involved in the aid management inside the country itself, inside Libya itself. And that is something I don't think anybody will accept. They will consider, different political factions. Despite the fact this has been one of the demands of the people of Derna, who came out in hundreds, on Monday, demanding international involvement, both in the investigation as well as in the management of aid itself, including how money is allocated and how it is dispensed into rebuilding projects. So, I think at the end of the day, I don't expect too much money to materialize in terms of international aid for several reasons. But one of them is the fact that the country is divided in terms of politics. It doesn't have one unified government. Actually, we have two. And the other reason I would also add, the international community and the big donors like Western countries, for example, and maybe the African Union as well, they don't trust either side of the political equation. They don't trust the government in Tripoli because of the corruption. They far less trust the government in Benghazi. So I think we might see some few millions coming in, maybe going there, here and there for the probably at the local level inside Derna itself, at the civil society level in Benghazi, but that will create a problem for such activists, such civil organizations, because the authorities, both in Benghazi and in Tripoli, they don't like that. So, having said that, I think the whole thing now rests with the officials on both sides of the political divide here in Tripoli and Benghazi as well. If
All
they
right.
do well, if they try to prove themselves,
Yeah.
then they will win the people. Otherwise, it will be a complete disaster, I guess.
All right, Libyan academic and journalist Mustafa Fetouri, all the way from Tripoli, Libya. Thank you so much for joining us on the program, and thanks for the insight on the development regarding the flood in Libya.
Thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure. You're still watching VSA with me, Blessings Mosugu. We go on a short break now. When we come back, we will be analyzing Ghana's economic growth and the debt crisis. Do stay with us.